Welcome back to the Heal Your Hormones podcast. On today's Friday Chats episode, we are going to be clearing up the difference between PCOS and something called hypothalamic amenorrhea, also known as HA. So these two often get mistaken for each other because they both can cause a woman to have irregular periods or lose her period altogether. So let's start with PCOS. With PCOS, we know women stop ovulating for a few reasons. The number one most common reason is insulin resistance. And this is the cause in about 70% of women with PCOS. Now, when a woman is insulin resistant, she has high levels of insulin in her blood. Remember, insulin is the hormone that helps to bring sugar out of our blood into our cells to be used for energy. When our cells don't respond to insulin, then they aren't able to take insulin and sugar in, and instead these levels stay high in the blood. Insulin then causes our ovaries to overproduce testosterone and stops our eggs from fully growing and maturing, so ovulation doesn't happen. For women who are not insulin resistant, inflammation and other hormone imbalances can prevent ovulation from taking place. If you've been listening to the podcast for a while, by now, I hope you understand that if we don't ovulate, we aren't going to get our period consistently. Maybe we'll have a period every 3 to 4 months, maybe not at all. So what is hypothalamic amenorrhea and how does it impact our cycles? HA is essentially when the brain and the ovaries stop communicating with each other. Because our brain makes hormones that tell our eggs to grow and tell our ovaries when it's time to ovulate, if they aren't communicating well with each other, then ovulation doesn't take place and cycles will be irregular. Now, LH is a hormone that triggers ovulation. With PCOS, we expect this hormone to be high. And that's because our ovaries are not responding to the LH. So our brain can sense this, and our brain is going to overproduce LH almost as a way of yelling at our ovaries, hey, it's time to ovulate. However, with hypothalamic amenorrhea, we typically see LH be normal or even low, because again, that communication is not really happening. Your doctor may suggest something called a progesterone challenge if you haven't had your period in a while. And this is when you take progesterone to trigger a period. Now, this will often work for women who don't have a period, including those with PCOS. Sometimes, I just want to put this warning out there, sometimes with PCOS, it does require you to take progesterone a few times in order to trigger that period. However, with hypothalamic amenorrhea, it will not be able to trigger a period. And this is because with HA, estrogen levels are typically low. Now, if you listened back to the podcast in April when we really deep dove into the menstrual cycle, you'll remember that estrogen helps the lining of our uterus to build up and grow. So if estrogen is low and the lining doesn't build up, we're not going to have any tissue to break down and bleed. So you can see how even if you take progesterone, you don't have that tissue to break down and get a period. The most common cause of HA is undereating and overexercising. So you can see how women who think they have PCOS might be getting the wrong information about PCOS online, and they may think, oh, I have to eat less and exercise more, and that's going to help me get my cycles back. But that actually could be making things worse if they actually have HA. And I have worked with women both one-on-one and in the PCOS pregnancy protocol who started working with me thinking they had PCOS, and then we discovered they actually had HA. HA is something that I personally dealt with for over 2 years when I had my eating disorder. And although losing your period may seem convenient, HA also increases your risk of developing bone fractures, which I often had in my feet, partially related to dancing, but also related to my low hormone levels. And it can increase your risk of osteoporosis later in life because estrogen helps to keep our bones strong. So I hope that this highlights the importance of getting a true, accurate diagnosis and working with a healthcare provider who can clearly interpret your results so you know exactly what you're dealing with. Let's ditch Dr. Google and ditch self-diagnosing moving forward because it really can do more harm than good. All right, that is all for today's episode. As always, if you have any questions or topic requests, you can message me at Dr. Danielle.ND, and I would be happy to chat. I hope you have a great weekend, and I will see you on Tuesday.